but it seemed to her that they would not find anything. Then the woman added that she had completely forgotten about it and took out some sweets from her bag, which the doctor handed over. Having reached the house, Rebecca put her son to bed and sat down next to him on the bed. Holding the box of chocolates in her hands, she thought about how she had told the doctor several times not to spoil them. Opening a box of chocolates, Demian's mother found a note inside that shocked her. In it, the doctor talked about how someone was looking for her and asked her to be careful. At the same time, Harriet opened the door to an unfamiliar man and in a trembling voice asked if her friend really owed him money. The Duke told her that the opposite was true, but that was not why he was looking for her. The woman covered her mouth with her hand, realizing how much the stranger looked like her friend's son. Killian calmly announced that he wanted to offer something to Miss Dickinson. Half an hour later, Rebecca knocked on Harriet's door again, asking her if everything was okay with her. Looking around, the girl asked in a trembling voice if anyone unfamiliar had come to see her. The woman said that she did not understand at all what was going on, and she was frightened by the fact that she was acting strangely. She asked if something had happened, to which Rebecca replied that she just wanted to make sure. Before the girl left, her friend decided to bring the unknown Duke's plan to life. She asked if the house was too small for them, after which she said that one of her friends was renting out a house nearby and at a very good price. Harriet said that she would pay about the same as for the current one. Rebecca understood well that the area where her friend lived was much better, and if the rent was about the same as the current one, then it was a fairy tale. But soon she remembered the note and said that she was very grateful, but she planned move to another region. As she left, she said that if some suspicious man was looking for her, then she should not talk about her. The woman could not stop her friend, but simply watched her follow. Turning, Harriet asked if he was sure that Rowena would be all right. The Duke firmly assured her that absolutely everything would be fine with the girl, and he guaranteed it. He handed her a check form and told her that she could write any number on it as payment for helping him find his missing loved one. The woman rudely said that she did not need money, but she decided to help because she believed that it would be better for her friend. She added sternly and moralizingly that she really hoped that he would not ruin her life. Leaving the house, the Duke gave her a contemptuous look, after which he declared that it was none of her business. Harriet thought that Damien's father was a man whom she had only seen on the front pages of newspapers, so she could not believe that she had not realized it right away. She reasoned that Rowena acted as if she wanted nothing to do with him, but her son was very fragile and sickly, so he should live in better conditions. Remembering her first impression of the Duke entering, the woman remembered with what trepidation he spoke about the fact that he was looking for one woman. From one look of his, she realized that the man loved Rowena very much, even if he himself did not understand it. Killian got back into his carriage and headed towards the house where he was staying. Zenock asked what they would do, because he could only order them, and they would bring her to him right away. To which the Duke asked if they had found out who sold the ring on the black market. His friend reported that some woman apparently stole it, so they set up surveillance on her. Zenock asked in surprise if his lordship really didn't want to see Miss Filone. The Duke thought that he was grateful to Harriet Dickinson for befriending Rowena when she had no one to turn to, but that was all. Grinning, he remembered her words about not ruining Rebecca's life, to which he decided that it was funny to hear such a thing from her, because she didn't even know her friend's real name. Killian asked how things were going with Chloe Aberdeen, to which his friend replied that she had signed divorce papers and then disappeared. But according to their agent, the girl had returned somewhere in the countryside to relax. Looking at the moon, the man reported that his ex-wife had done the right thing. Immediately after the wedding, Chloe announced that it was time for them to do what newlyweds do. Then he simply laughed. But since then, her persistence only intensified, because the girl set herself the goal of seducing him, after which she sneaked into his bedroom at every slightest opportunity, and even a couple of times the Duke thought about paying tribute to her persistence, because he needed there was an heir. But it was as if he was cursed, because his wife only disgusted him, but it wasn't even about her, because he reacted the same way to other women who tried to seduce him. So Chloe quickly gave up and started an affair on the side that I didn't even hide it. On the last day of their wedding, she was found in a cold bathtub with her wrist slit. Fortunately, she didn't lose that much blood, so there was no threat to her life. But literally, the next day after she woke up, the Duke gave her a choice. He showed her 2 documents and said that one of them was an application for inpatient treatment in a psychiatric hospital, and the other was documents for divorce. Killian added that he would understand if she didn't want to divorce him, but he couldn't just ignore her condition. Rising from the table, he said that if she could not decide at the moment, he would give her time to think, and then she would have to convey her decision through a lawyer. As he left her, he heard out of the corner of his ear how the woman angrily said the name of his mistress. Crying with incredible hurt, his wife asked if he had treated her the same way he had once treated Rowena. The man turned to her and thought that for 5 whole years he had not even remembered this name. The Duke indifferently asked what kind of nonsense he would do, to which Chloe screamed that he muttered her name in his sleep, and then added that the powerful Duke of Devonshire belongs to only one woman. Closing the door behind him, he angrily told her that it seemed that she was also paranoid, and that she had definitely gone crazy. Walking down the corridor, he thought that these stupid accusations deserved neither an answer nor attention, after which he fell to his knees. It was at that moment that the Duke realized that the curse that was gradually shrinking around his neck had consumed his entire being. Now sitting in the carriage, the Duke continued to think about whether his ex-wife was right. He remembered the day when he first saw Miss Falone enter the train compartment. From the moment Rowena Falone's name surfaced, he suffered from endless attacks of dizziness and migraines. Memories washed over him like a torrent of water breaking through a dam. 8 years earlier, Rowena stood on the platform waiting for her train, which was supposed to take her to the capital. The girl was full of determination, I think, that she would not stay in the capital on her own. Entering one of the carriages, she frantically searched for where the third-class cabin was located. Opening the first door she came across, Rowena accidentally ended up in the compartment where the Duke was sitting. It was at that moment that love began to arise in his heart, but he was cold even to his feelings, so he did not understand it. The restless girl apologized and suggested that she had simply mixed up the compartment. As she was about to go out, she accidentally tripped over the threshold and almost fell to the floor, but the man managed to catch her. Looking tenderly into her eyes, he told her that she should be much more careful when eating. Embarrassed, Rowena blushed deeply and thanked him in a voice trembling with excitement. To his question about whether she was really lost, the girl replied that she was looking for a third-class compartment. Suddenly she began to hiccup, so she covered her mouth with her hand and said that he was so handsome, so she was not herself. The man looked at her affectionately and was touched by her reaction to his help. He rang the bell and a conductor immediately came to them, whom he told to escort the lady to her compartment. The newcomer called the lady to come with him, after which Rowena headed to her compartment. Finally, the Duke of Devonshire, in a welcoming voice, wished her good luck on such a long journey. When he asked what her name was, the girl smiled and said that her name was Rowena Falone. Seeing how sweet and charming she was, Killian could not take his eyes off her for a long time. Having gathered his courage, the man decided that he should also tell her his name, so he introduced himself. He added that his name was Killian Devonshire, after which he assured that he was very pleased to meet you. Having met him later in the dining car, Rowena talked about how she would like one day to have a simply delicious dinner in a restaurant somewhere on the coast, with her favorite flowers on the table and her beloved man sitting opposite. The Duke told her that this was a rather sweet dream, and then asked her what her favorite flowers were. The girl frankly said that she really liked Edelweiss, because where she grew up, they were everywhere. She added that it was the first time she dared to leave her native land, because she had never been to the city before. Killian assumed that she would get the hang of it pretty quickly, and then asked how old she was. Rowena admitted that she was 20 years old, to which the Duke said that he was 28, to which she noticed that he did not look like that, but seemed much younger. After some time, he stated that he was glad to talk to her, but he had to go. Leaving the carriage, he turned around again to better remember his new acquaintance. Coming out of the restaurant, the Duke thought that Rowena Falone was very sweet. She was only 20 years old, so she was too young for him. He could come up with a million reasons why they shouldn't be together, since she was only 20, and it was immediately clear from her that her family was far from wealthy, so this meeting should have been not only the first, but also the last. But, both in the carriage on the way home and upon arrival at the mansion, the Duke of Devonshire still could not get her out of his head, and his last bits of conscience very quickly gave up. He told Madame Gertrude that his choice fell on Rowena Falone, who was traveling with him on the train. Killian ordered the housekeeper to find a young green-eyed blonde who had recently arrived in the capital. Having collected information, Madame told him that a high-class courtesan had arrived with that name, whose main trump card was blonde hair, but she had fallen into huge debts, so she was on the run. After the report, she curiously asked if it was she he wanted to see. The Duke thought that this was truly amazing acting, and for some reason such a woman was stuck in his thoughts. He said that the housekeeper could be free, but she said that this woman was very similar to Lady Angela. She added that she had problems with money, but she could be useful, because the Queen would definitely try to arrange another wedding for him. Killian thought that Rowena dared to deceive him, so he wanted to kill her, but decided that if with her help he could avoid events that he did not want, then she could be useful to him. The Duke said that it was a good idea, but she had to suffer a little more, after which a whole 8 years passed. Xenok came to him, asking him why he didn't want to see her again. When the Duke asked who he was talking about, his friend said that he was talking about Miss Philo. He said that after a very meticulous investigation, they found a clue that she had settled in a remote town, living off several factories, so they followed a suspicious doctor named Philip McWood, and he led them to a woman working in a textile factory. Xenok added that she rents a dilapidated villa, where she has lived for a long time, and the ring surfaced on the black market. The Duke turned over the information he had heard in his head, thinking that although she was not the most correct, she was still his favorite, and if she had taken his money that he left that day, then she would not have to work with 10 years. This time, thinking about her, he was greeted not only by the good old migraine, but also by a sharp pain piercing his heart. Now the carriage was traveling peacefully to its destination, and at one point his friend announced that they had arrived. The Duke got out of the carriage, thinking that he was completely lost in these useless thoughts. One of his charges was riding towards him on a horse, clearly about to tell him some information. The excited guy was loudly talking about how the woman who pawned the ring had been found dead. Hearing this, Killian felt incredible fear, which intensified with every step he took. He jumped on his horse and raced to the scene while his friend tried to stop him. Xenok and the guy who arrived could not do anything, but only watched as he gradually moved away. The Duke thought that either the Queen did not like something, or the enemy was hiding within. He decided that whatever it was, Rowena was clearly in danger because of it. Meanwhile, Rebecca returned to her house, where she was met by a half-asleep Damien. He tiredly asked his mom where she went, to which she replied that she was just chatting with Harriet about something. The girl looked at her son with concern, hoping that everything would be fine with him. Approaching him, she said that they might have to go somewhere far, far away. Hearing the word far away, the boy wondered if he would never see Aunt Harriet and her twins again. His mother was just about to answer him, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Rebecca was scared, and in a trembling voice asked her son to go to his room. Pushing him into the room, she tried to reassure him that the landlady might have come. At her request that he wait for her in the room, Damien calmly agreed to carry out the assignment. Having closed the door behind her son, the girl was overcome by extreme fear and despair. She hoped that even if the Duke really divorced his wife because she was infertile, it would be more logical to just find another woman, so she believed that it could not be him. Suddenly the front door opened, but Rebecca still had her back to it and her body was shaking. The girl always believed that he would not look for her because he simply did not love her. Unfortunately for her, Killian entered their house, admiring the fact that it was Miss Falone in front of him after all. She was shaking all over with fear and the knowledge that the worst-case scenario of all had actually happened. Looking at her, the Duke realized that he was a demon for her, or even death itself in the flesh. Looking around, he wearily stated that his ex-lover's life was certainly not so-so. Gathering her strength, Rowena, stuttering, nervously asked him why he had come to her. The tired man in a calm voice suggested that she start all over again. The girl reminded him that the last time they saw each other, he simply waved away the money and left her, to which he replied that he had not forgotten about it for a second. Lighting a cigarette, the Duke added that since he threw it away, he came back for it. Seeing the cigarette, Rowena thought that there was a child in the house and threateningly ordered him to strangle her immediately. A clearly frightened child's voice suddenly called out to her from behind the slightly open door of the room. Damien said that the person did not look like the landlady, and then asked who came to them. Seeing the child, the Duke immediately put out his cigarette and sat in amazement for some time. Turning to her son, the girl screamed for him to return to the room. Slamming the door, she loudly told the Duke to get out of her house immediately. She was afraid that he might see her son's face and realize that he was just like him. But instead, Killian laughed. He angrily stated that, of course, he did not expect excessive chastity from her, but now she had an extra burden. Rising from the chair, he began to slowly walk towards her and say that it seemed like she had found herself another man. Taking her by the chin, the Duke interrupted her endless cries that he should not come near her, and said that he was calling her by name, after which he asked when she managed to forget about manners. The girl stated that he simply broke into her house, and then asked why she would talk to him politely. As he got closer, he angrily asked if it was all because of that man. Rowena tried to resist, but still their lips met in the kiss that he had been waiting for so long. Having managed to push him away from her and slap him in the face, the girl stood in tears. The Duke laughed and began to wipe the blood from his lips, which also fell under her blow. Pressing her against the door, he declared that the choice was hers, and then he watched as tears ran down her cheek. Seeing her trembling, Killian added that either she would become his favorite or die on the street with her child. Rowena again tried to escape from his hands, asking him why he was up to his old ways again after so many years. She continued to scream that he had already left her once, and then asked why he would do it again. Looking at her, the Duke thought that he himself had no idea why he started all this, because he was going to leave after paying Harriet, and he had no reason to waste his time. He felt disgusted in his soul just by the thought that his former favorite was living in poverty, who had once betrayed him and had now found another man with whom she bore a child. He still didn't understand why he still couldn't forget about her, and longed for her warmth. All Killian said out loud was that he didn't need a reason, because if he wanted to, he could do it. Getting ready to leave, the man advised her to pack her things, since he would pick her up the next day at lunch. Looking at her angrily, he quietly said that the child should also be collected. Opening the front door, the Duke said goodbye to her, saying that he would return to her tomorrow. Rowena sank helplessly to the floor, crying from hopelessness and awareness of the inevitability. Her son came out of the room and asked her if everything was okay with her, but she answered that she was okay. To his question about who came to them at such a late hour, his mother said that it was her old friend. She added that he would just help them move, after which they would live with him, because he is very rich, so the boy will have many, many toys and sweets. Damien screamed that he wanted them to live just the two of them because the stranger made her cry. Looking at her son, she could not believe that she had raised such a brave and courageous boy. Once upon a time, the handsome Duke Killian Devonshire was absolutely everything in this world to her. Once upon a time he loved her, and she loved him back, and that was more than enough. But it was not her lover who prevented her from making a critical mistake, the child that grew inside her, which is why Killian killed her and Damien brought her back to life. Hugging her son, Rowena explained that even if they live with someone else, he will remain the most important thing in her life. The girl whispered that she loved only Damien and no one else. The next day, she went to the factory, asking forgiveness for not giving her time to find a replacement. Some of the workers looked at each other, while Rebecca talked about how Anna was also missing. Suddenly, they handed her a beautiful bouquet of roses, from which an amazing aroma emanated. The workers said that it was a gift from them because she worked so hard that they decided to please her a little. One of them said that she was very sorry that she was suddenly leaving, but she was very grateful to her for the fact that her partner always took on work that others turned up their nose at. Tearing a little, the girl asked how they knew that she was leaving. Harriet approached them slowly and firmly stated that it was she who had told them. Walking closer to Rebecca, the woman grabbed her hand, saying that they needed to talk. Moving a little to the side, the girl excitedly wondered what had happened. Harriet repented, saying that she was the one who told where she lived. She explained that they were talking about Duke Killian of Devonshire, who, in her opinion, was Damien's father. The woman apologized for not being able to keep her promise, after which she added that she would understand if her friend Miss could forgive her, but she believed that the boy needed better conditions. At the end of her speech, Harriet confidently declared that the Duke loved her with all his heart. The girl understood that her friend wished only the best for her, but she did not know the Duke at all, who could not love her. Rowena said that she did not need to apologize because she was very grateful to her for everything. The girl said that she would have one request, to which Harriet said that she would be happy to fulfill it. Handing her a small package, Rowena asked her to send it to the right address, where a man named Jeremy Rausch, who was her uncle on her mother's side, should live. She also asked that the woman leave her address on the envelope, after which her friend said that she would pray that from now on there would be only happiness in her life. Hearing these words, Rowena nodded curtly and thanked Harriet from the bottom of her heart. After that, the friends waved goodbye to each other, not yet knowing what would happen ahead. Heading back, the girl thought that she would never be so pliable again and would do her best to protect her son. She knew that if Killian found out that he was his father and then grew tired of her again, the boy would live alone in a huge abandoned castle with no one to rely on. Rowena was determined that she would escape before all this happened, no matter the cost. Having found the girl who stole the ring, the assistants told the Duke that, judging by the bruises on her upper lip, she had been poisoned, after which they suggested that perhaps she had fought back and the poison had been force-fed to her. One of them added that, judging by the findings, the woman did not know the suspect, but nevertheless, the main suspect at the moment was her partner. Killian calmly informed them that this man's corpse would also be found soon, to which the detective was very surprised. As he left, The man asked to tell the magistrate that an unknown person had left the woman's body near the medical examiner's office. He understood that someone was targeting Rowena Philo and was trying to do it in a rather insidious way. Lighting a cigarette, Killian thought that the murder of Anna Eden was a warning, but the Queen would not waste time on such a thing, so the only suspect remained. His thoughts were interrupted by an assistant approaching, who said that Mr. Zenok had gone to pick up Miss Filone, so they would soon arrive at the station. When the Duke asked what news about the child, the guy said that his right hand had ordered a separate compartment for the boy. Killian told me he was glad about this, because he didn't want to travel with some child in the same compartment. Remembering the previous evening, when his favorite shed bitter tears, he suddenly realized that he was experiencing a previously unfamiliar feeling. At the same time, the man met Miss Filone to accompany her to the station. Raising her head, Rowena saw the very familiar face of Mr. Zenok in front of her. He notified her that their carriage had arrived and they could go, since his lordship was already tired of waiting. When she asked if they could stop by her house so she could pick up her things, the Duke's friends said that his lordship wanted her to leave all her things in this city. The girl did not doubt it, because she knew that he always does things his own way. Zenok said that at first glance, it was clear from her son that he was the son of a duke, and also added that he was very surprised when he saw him. Rowena was concerned that she had no idea where her son was or what they could do with him. To reassure her, the man calmly said that it would be better if his lordship decides himself, so he didn't tell him anything, but everything was fine with the young master, because he personally took care of everything. The concerned mother said that she had to personally verify this, to which he replied that she should calm down, and promised that not a hair would fall from the boy's head. The girl screamed that she could not trust them, thinking that this was an illegitimate boy, because of whom the entire Devonshire family tree could be shaken, and Zenok was a faithful servant of this family, so he could do anything. The man tried to reassure her, saying that the young master is the son of the Duke, which means he serves him too. Xenos 5 years ago, when everyone looked down on her, was the only one who treated her like a human being and even gave her money for the trip. So now she tried to calm down and asked him not to tell the Duke that Demian was his son. The man thought that 5 years ago he saw in front of him only a beautiful doll that existed for the pleasure of the Duke. He couldn't help but wonder if she had a similar stern look at that moment. Turning around, he quietly promised her to keep the secret, but explained that he was not omnipotent, and sooner or later everything's secret would become clear. He added that when they boarded the train, he would give her a moment to see his son and make sure that the servants did not gossip about it. Arriving at the station, Rowena saw Demian dressed in beautiful blue clothes. Seeing his mother, the boy immediately rushed to her and answered her questions about whether everything was okay with him, and answered loudly in the affirmative. He pointed his finger to the side and said that he was told that all these toys were only for him. The boy asked how he looked in new clothes, to which the girl replied that he looked good. She thought that her child dreamed of so much, but he had nothing. But her thoughts were interrupted by Damian's question about whether he could take it all. Rowena kissed his forehead and gently explained that it was all his now, because he was her good boy. Zenok coughed quietly, reminding them that the Duke was still waiting for them in a separate compartment. The girl quickly informed the child that it was time for her to go to another compartment. She added that she would return when they got off the train, but before she had time to finish, she was interrupted by the cry of her son, who did not want this at all. He asked her not to go to the evil man because he was scary and could take her away. Looking at her son, she thought that she had to be strong because she had to make a good impression on the Duke. Rising, Rowena heard the Duke's right hand inform her that a nanny would look after him. The woman who came took Demian, saying that if he was kinder, she would give him something tasty, to which the boy shouted that he did not need clothes or toys, but only his mother. Her son screamed for a long time for her to return to him, but the girl did not dare turn towards the screams. Walking down the hallway, she told the man that she hoped they would take care of Demian. Approaching the compartment in which the Duke was, Rowena physically felt that she was again going to the scaffold. Zenok knocked softly, saying that he had just brought Miss Filone. Entering the compartment, the girl found the Duke wearing glasses to read the latest newspaper, which had been purchased in advance. Having looked sternly at the newcomer, Killian said that she could sit down next to him. The excited Rowena entered slowly, clearly not intending to sit next to him. Entering the compartment, the girl sat down in the opposite far corner, which greatly surprised the man. He asked if this was her way of expressing her dissatisfaction, to which she replied that she had decided to sit further away so as not to distract him. Taking off his glasses, the Duke said that she overestimates herself because she does not influence him in this way. Killian added that, nevertheless, she deserves praise for not dragging the petty bastard into the compartment, because he didn't think she could handle it. Clenching her hands into fists, Rowena, barely restraining herself, asked why he was looking for her if she did not influence him. Seeing his cold gaze, she recalled that he broke into her house just to take her seven to Rockford. But they lived quietly anyway. Suddenly, the Duke's hand flashed next to her, only slightly missing. Hovering over her, he stated what he had already explained, that he hated leaving behind any garbage. The girl thought that she had to control herself in order to protect her son. Removing his hand from her, Rowena looked at him and asked if he would tell her about reminded him that the room was more than empty at the moment. The girl thought that if she lived next to him, it would be even more difficult to see her son. Deciding to act, she said that she would prefer her old room. Having measured her with a cold gaze, the Duke turned around and ordered in a menacing voice that she would live next to him. After his words, he headed straight to the estate without uttering another word. Rowena wanted to object, but there was a lump in her throat, so she simply remained silent. At the same time, the postman came to her uncle, shouting that he had received mail, to which Jeremy replied that he could have left it under the door because nothing would have happened. The boy stated that he had something that he wanted to hand over to him personally. The man suggested that if this publishing house was trying to rush him again, he might send the letter back. The postman apologized, saying that he accidentally mixed up the letter because he meant something completely different. He took from his bag an envelope on which was written the sender, Harriet Dickinson. One day, Zenon secretly led her to his son's chambers, saying that the Duke would leave the estate in a couple of days at dawn, since he needed to deal with the tax authorities and property. He stated that while he was away, she would be able to freely see the young master, to which the girl asked if any of the servants had seen Demian. The man assured her that very few people had been seen, including him and the nanny, but he strictly ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut. Soon they found themselves in the chambers of the little gentleman, who was lying peacefully in his bed, hugging a toy. Rowena looked at her child with regret, realizing how lonely he was. She came closer to him because she saw bitter tears in his small eyes. The girl gently removed them, which made Damien blush slightly from the feeling that his mother was nearby. Zenon told her that the Duke has no children from his previous wedding, so if he finds out that Demian is his biological son, then the boy will most likely become the named heir. Rowena indifferently asked what awaited him next, and then wondered if the same thing that happened to the Duke would await him, and he would grow up alone in this castle. The man explained that every child deserves to know who his father is, and the Duke will soon learn the whole truth. He asked her not to think about whether Killian deserved to know about his son or not, because she could gradually tell him about the young master, and when his lordship stopped avoiding the boy, she could painlessly reveal the whole truth. As she brushed the hair from her son's face, the girl thought that she would run away before it all came to this. The next morning a maid came to her and said that her name was Joanna Jude. Rowena greeted the new maid and said in a friendly manner that she was glad to meet her. The girl asked if she knew Melissa, who used to work on this estate and had brown hair, brown eyes, and freckles. Joanna said that the girl left around the time she started working for the Duke. She heard that the girl received a huge severance pay and returned to her hometown. The favorite asked the new maid to write a letter to Melissa if they were still in contact. Joanna led her mistress into the next room, where there were many gifts. The maid explained that as soon as she returned, the whole capital was talking about it, so the Earl of Wales sent her shoes, and Baroness Somerset sent her a pearl necklace. Looking at all the gifts, Rowena thought that 5 years ago these same people called her a fallen woman, looking at her with disgust, and now they sent gifts and congratulations. She decided that they believed that her position had improved, that even if she did not become a duchess, she would still have influence over the House of Devonshire. The favorite knew that as soon as the Duke got tired of her, he would immediately leave her, so she told the maid to send all the gifts back. The girl said that she must return everything they sent in its original form. Joanna was very upset by her mistress's decision, but she could not do anything about it. She said that a letter had also arrived without a gift, the sender of which was Harriet Dickinson. Upon receiving the letter, Rowena began to quickly read it, which said that the twins missed Demian very much, just as she missed her. The letter also said that Harriet had heard that she was looking for a teacher for her son, and she and her twins had a similar problem, because no one wants to take on two at once. The woman wrote that she heard that one of her favorite writers, Roderick Defonce, lived nearby, and since they had a mutual friend, she asked him to help, and the man said that he was looking for a new job because there was not enough income from writing. She suggested that Rowena contact him because he could study with Demian. Roderick Defonce was her uncle's pen name, which only she knew about, so the entire letter was encrypted under the usual correspondence about the teacher, but in fact, her friend said that her uncle was ready to help her. Although the Duke was not there yet, the girl could spend enough time with her son, but Damien's position in the estate was somewhat ambiguous, because the lady's child was in no way related to the Duke by blood. She understood that his whole life constantly passed within the confines of a small room. Coming to him one day, Rowena heard him ask whether she had been near the lake in front of the castle. The boy told her that he wanted to go to this beautiful place at least once, which he was looking at from the window. The girl knew that her child himself understood the difficult situation he was in, and he was only 5 years old. Therefore, she decided to lighten his burden and walk with him to the desired lake. Having gathered, they quickly headed to the shore, and his mother constantly looked around in the hope that none of the servants would see them. She thought that nothing bad should happen, because it was very early, and the boy was wearing a hat. Stopping near the water, the child shouted joyfully about how beautiful the lake turned out to be. Rowena, who had been to this place so many times, seemed to really see the beauty of the lake for the first time. When she was Killian's favorite, they often visited there, but at those moments the lake seemed to her like some unsightly puddle, which gave her goosebumps, because she saw much larger and cleaner lakes. But now this place seemed somehow magical to her, because now she was there with her son. The boy said that he really liked this place and would like to go there more often. He happily stated that he was glad that it was just the two of them there, and that was the main thing for him. To his question about whether he could swim in the lake, the girl replied that soon he would be able to swim as much as he wanted, because his maternal uncle, whose name was Jeremy Dish, would come for them. Demian asked if they would soon leave this place, to which Rowena replied that she promised him this, because much more spacious and free lakes awaited him. Taking her son back to the room, Rowena slowly headed to her chambers. Walking down the corridor, she thought that when the Duke returned, she would ask to hire her uncle as a teacher for her son. The girl knew that only she understood who was behind the name Roderick Defonce, so it should not be revealed. As she approached her room, she noticed that the door was open and a small light was emanating from it. Walking slowly inside, she found Killian Devonshire sitting on her bed. The man sternly asked where his favorite went at such an early hour. Shuddering, she said that she decided to take a walk because she felt a little stuffy within the walls of the estate, to which he asked why she didn't tell anyone about this. From the video, Rowena humbly said that this would not happen again, and since he had just arrived, it was better for him to rest and not to worry. The Duke remembered that on the train, when he lay down next to her on the bed, he touched her hands and thought that she had lost a lot of weight. For 5 years, it seemed to Killian that there was a gaping hole in his chest, but although he was afraid, having learned that his favorite did not take the money he left her, he was still not going to look for her and forcefully take possession of her. But the very fact that he was thinking about her irritated him so much that it led him to certain thoughts that as soon as he met her, he would strangle her on the spot. When he saw Rowena Filone again, all the anger disappeared, as if it had never existed. Instead of anger, another emotion awoke in him, so complex that simple epithets like sympathy or tenderness were not able to properly describe it. But he often thought about how he would feel if he knew that she was living quite well for herself. The Duke understood that he needed her, although he hoped that he would be better off without her. But in the end, he was as mistaken as possible in principle. In all this, he was only worried about the little boy she had from another man. So now he said that he was thinking of leaving bygones in the past, to which she asked what he was getting at. Killian explained that he allows her to see the child, and if she wants, she can walk with him near the castle, but only with an accompanying person and at the allotted time. Rowena curiously asked if he was sure of his decision, to which he replied that he understood perfectly well what she was doing while he was away. So he decided that it would be better to discuss everything on the shore, and the main condition was that the boy should not get caught in his eyes. He told her that starting tomorrow, he would open a trust account in her name, and all she had to do was listen to the lawyer and leave a couple of autographs, but if she needed anything, she could tell him directly or convey it through the maids. She asked him why there was such generosity all of a sudden, and then added that she didn't need a trust account, since it provided her with everything she needed, to which he replied that if he didn't need it, then okay, but he needed her. Looking out the window through which the first rays of the sun were breaking through, he said that he had never known that she loved so much from the lake, but promised that as soon as everything calmed down a little, they would definitely go on a boat ride. Rowena spent a long time trying to remember the last time she heard something like that from him. After a few days, the Duke was able to keep his promise and took her boating. While eating the muffins, she still couldn't believe that this was happening in reality and not in her dream. He surprised her by having lunch together every day, enjoying wonderful dishes from the chefs. Killian never even forced her to sleep with him as payment for his generosity. She wanted to understand what was on his mind, and at that time, he gently removed the crumb from her mouth. Embarrassed, the girl thanked him, to which he said that a small gift was waiting for her at the estate. Rowena said that instead of gifts, she would prefer to see her son more often, to which he said that he felt that he was already allowing her enough. She explained that he allows her to see him only during the allotted time. The child is still very small and needs maternal care. To his question about whether she really wanted to sit with him all the time, because he already had 2 nannies, and, moreover, a whole galaxy of servants, ready to do anything for him at any time, she answered that she was his mother, and no one will take care of him except her. She owed her life to this baby, because he did not let her jump into the abyss on the edge of which she stood. His first cry, his first steps that he struggled to take, and even when he called her mom for the first time and ran into her arms, were everything to her. Many moments when she was happier than ever were with her son. So now, sitting in the boat, Rowena cried and said that Demian was her guiding light, her ray of hope that led her through the darkness. The Duke did not expect such a reaction at all, so he was slightly taken aback as he watched her. Having come to his senses, he approached the girl, asking her to calm down. Rowena hugged Killian tightly, because at that moment she needed a hug more than ever. The The girl caught herself thinking that the Duke was very warm, but she would never let this warmth deceive her, because his mood could change in the blink of an eye. He had already once overthrown her from the blissful world into the impenetrable abyss of despair, and this warmth was just a second flash. She decided that if he so wanted her to be fragile, then she would take advantage of it with great pleasure. His favorite tearfully asked that if she behaved properly, would he allow him to see his son more often. Killian looked at her with displeasure, trying to comprehend what she asked him to do. Wiping the tears from her face, he assured her that he would think about it, but for now, they needed to return to the castle, as she had a gift waiting for her. Sitting in the reception room, Rowena wondered what gift the Duke would give her this time. Lately, he had been giving her something almost every day, so now she was expecting jewelry, a dress or flowers. But unexpectedly, her former maid Melissa entered the room and timidly greeted her mistress. The girl turned towards the door, not believing that the Duke was talking about such a gift. The maid said that she had been hired again, so she would help Joanna look after her. Before she had time to finish, the favorite attacked her with hugs, saying that she was very glad to see her, because they told her that she had returned to her hometown. The girl said that she was very happy to be here again, and then asked if she was forced to return. Melissa remembered very well the day when the Baron told her to say that her mistress had an affair with the president of the publishing house. The maid tried to stop him, but he said that with his help, she played the role of a faithful maid perfectly. He recalled that her father was crippled and her mother was sick, but her older brothers were in the prime of life. After the incident, Melissa constantly repeated to herself that everything was fine with Miss Filoni, but she constantly felt guilty until she received a letter from Joanna. Her mother reported that a letter had arrived addressed to her daughter from someone named Joanna. The letter said that the first thing that caught her eye was the unhealthy pallor and thinness of the lady, so it was difficult for her to believe that 5 years ago she was considered a natural beauty. Therefore, now the maid reproached herself with all her heart for telling a lie that day. The girl never felt as disgusting as she did when she learned that an innocent person had suffered because of her lies. So now, when Rowena hugged her so sincerely, the maid could not say anything in response. She thought that her mistress was always so kind to her, apparently because she knew nothing. Gathering her will into a fist, Melissa decided to tell the whole truth and then beg for forgiveness. She was quickly interrupted by the Baron entering, who reported that Miss Filoni had not been seen for a long time. The girl asked in surprise how she could be useful to him at such a time. A man came over and said he needed to discuss trust funds with her. Seeing the one for whom she lied, the maid stood in a stupor and looked straight into his eyes. When asked by her mistress what happened to her, the girl said that she was a little unwell. Rowena assumed that she was exhausted from the long journey, so she sent her to rest. The maid who was leaving thanked the girl and asked her to forgive her for such behavior. Leaving the room, she fell exhausted to the floor, and bitter tears began to flow from her eyes. The girl considered herself disgusting and undeserving of forgiveness after what she had done, and now she could not even look her mistress in the eye. Zenock approached her, asking her to get up from the floor and walk with him. He added that his lordship personally wanted to meet her face to face, without her mistress. At the same time, the Baron had already finished drawing up the contract and asked if she had any questions. Rowena said that he already had enough to do, so he should not worry about her, to which he replied that she was very important to the Duke. He remembered that she was once expelled, then returned, and then an account was opened in her name, and then he suggested that the world is very changeable. Looking at her, the Baron asked if she could join him for a walk. As he led her through the corridors, he showed her a portrait of Lady Hersey, the Duke's great-aunt. The girl noticed that the woman was very beautiful, to which he replied that everyone in the Devonshire family always stood out for their appearance, both men and women. The Baron said that the lady left them around her age because she married a powerful duke from another kingdom. Her husband fell in love with her at first sight when he was in their kingdom on business, but she did not want to marry him because she already had a loved one. Less than a year after her wedding, she hanged herself, but it was only much later that the truth emerged that at the time she was forced to marry the Duke, she was pregnant with her lover's child, but she had a miscarriage and her man was quietly executed. The Baron said that Earl William, not a close relative, but close to the family, died at the hands of his mistress, and Lady Elizabeth was supposed to marry a man from the imperial family, but fell in love with a commoner and jumped off a cliff. The former Duke of Devonshire died because of a terrible event related to his favorite actress, with whom he then lived, and the girl thought that all these people died because of tragic events related to love. The man assumed that she knew where his lordship's middle name came from, Maximilian, because it was at the suggestion of his father's favorite, so the Duke never recognized this name. His father gave his son the name of his favorite, but if you look at the history of the Devonshire house, then everything became clear. The Baron stated that there was a curse on the entire family, that people from the Devonshire family could only fall in love once. He pulled back the cover, which hid a single picture of a beautiful woman. The man explained that this was his lordship's late bride, to whom he had been betrothed even before birth, and who was exactly like Rowena. A few days later, the girl was not herself, which is why she accidentally dropped her mug of tea on the floor. Melissa asked her, puzzled, if she was hurt, to which the favorite replied that she was fine. Last night, the Baron told her that all he wanted was for his lordship to be happy, which is why he showed her this portrait. The man stood with a lantern and suggested that a relationship cannot be built on deception. He added that he hoped that she understood at least a fraction of the whole horrific truth. Therefore, now Rowena told the maids to bring her sleeping pills because she could not sleep at all, to which Joanna stated that she had been taking pills for a whole week almost every day. She stated that perhaps it was because of the Duke, who went somewhere and did not warn her. Melissa looked at her mistress, and the question crept into her head about whether everything was okay with her. That same night, the girl slept soundly, taking a sleeping pill to get enough sleep. The Duke came into her room and began to gently stroke her blonde head. Seeing that she woke up, he said that he did not want to wake her up at all. Rowena thought that she would not allow him to fool her again, because no matter how many times she told herself this, some part wanted to believe otherwise. But after she saw the portrait, everything suddenly fell into place, because she understood why he decided to return to her after what happened. The girl said in a sleepy voice that while he was gone, she was thinking about how she really felt. Taking his hand and holding it close to her, she said that the 5 years that she lived without him were full of sadness. Killian was very stunned by this news, so he could not answer her right away. Without allowing him to say a word, the favorite clung to him and explained that she missed him very much. From that day on, their precarious relationship turned into something completely different, because Rowena openly admitted her defeat, and the Duke, in turn, became gentle and generous as never before. So they went to bed together every night, and in the morning, he was waiting for her by the bed. A bouquet of freshly picked flowers, as well as famous jewelers and tailors coming to the estate every day. And the girl's beauty bloomed again, like a flower in spring. At the ball, some talked about how beautiful Miss Filone was, while others said that she was the same as 5 years ago. Someone interrupted them, saying that the girl had become much more beautiful than before. When Rowena and Killian started dancing, everyone around them looked at them in amazement. All the guests were captivated by the wonderful beauty that emanated from this pair of young people. Joanna asked Melissa if she thought their mistress had changed recently. She explained that she and the Duke had become closer, which meant that at this rate, she would soon become the Duchess of Devonshire. Melissa laughed softly, but thought that the new maid came to the manor after that situation, so she doesn't know what happened between them. She too was glad that she and the Duke got along, but as everyone knew, you can't erase words from a song, so they could not erase the past. The favorite approached her maids, saying that she had searched them everywhere because she wanted to invite Melissa to walk with her to the terrace. Going out to the street, the maid asked if maybe she had just had a little too much to drink, to which her mistress replied that she was fine. Noticing that it was cool outside, Melissa offered to go get a raincoat, to which Rowena thanked her. The girl looked at her old friend with trepidation and said that there was something else. She recalled that not long ago the maid wanted to tell her something important. Melissa pretended that she did not understand at all what was being said, so the girl explained that she wanted to tell her something, but the Baron interfered. The maid said in a trembling voice that she just wanted to say that she had always really wanted to meet her again. Trying to leave as quickly as possible, Melissa turned around and said that she would return immediately with a raincoat. Rowena looked after her for a long time, not believing that she really wanted to meet. The Duke approached her from behind, gently kissed her bare back and hugged her. The favorite was very embarrassed by this manifestation of love on his part and tried to stop him. She asked if he had dressed up like a vampire on purpose, to which he replied that he didn't know that himself. After listening to her, the Duke bent down to her neck so that she could feel his ragged breathing, after which he bit her roughly, as vampires do. The girl mockingly asked if he would let her go when he drank all her blood. The man inhaled the scent of her body and calmly said that he would never do this. While he was unbuttoning her dress, Rowena said that she wanted her son to have a teacher. She added that he himself knew very well that she lacked the erudition to teach him. Then the girl said that there was one person with whom she had a mutual friend, and she would like to recommend him. To his question about whether it was really a man, she worriedly replied that yes, after which he accidentally touched her skin with the lock, hurting her. Holding the dress, the favorite said that her maid was about to return, to which he asked how she knew this man. Rowena replied that he was one of her favorite writers, so she thought that he could teach Demian. The Duke demanded to know his name, to which the girl said that the author's name was Roderick Defens. The next day, Killian went to play poker with Felix, who very skillfully collected a straight flush royal. His opponent said that at this rate, they would be left penniless. Saying goodbye to them, the guy said that he would be glad to see them again next time. Looking slyly at the Duke, he asked what he thought about this. Lighting a cigarette, Killian said that first he had to get rid of the cheating deck secured under the table. Felix said in surprise that he would return all the money to him, to which he replied that he absolutely did not care about it. To his question about what was the matter then, because usually the man did not stay late, the Duke replied that he did it just like that. Snatching the newspaper from his hands, the guy read aloud that the Giltis company was boasting of sudden growth, and their shareholders were in huge profit. Looking at his interlocutor, he said that now he understands where he got such an attitude towards money. He added that he was probably in seventh heaven and called him Mr. Giltis's Eminence Grease. A small company, born somewhere in a small southern port, now controlled all sea traffic passing through Islewood, and it was not surprising that Killian Devonshire chose this port to start his business, because in this isolated place, washed by violent waves, there was an underground network that had vital connections with other countries, and it was the Duke of Devonshire who began the process of reorganizing this network. He justified his stay there by his reluctance to visit his wife's homeland, while Killian himself, meanwhile, repeatedly visited this southern port in order to personally monitor the course of the war, which reached its peak when he took a large organization by the gills, which refused to surrender until the very end. The Duke told the prisoner that if he gave them the sheet of names, he would live. The older man said that he had heard a lot about the Duke of Devonshire, and many said that his mother was an actress who slept with everyone she met. He believed that since he gave him the lists of names, Killian would not do anything to him, so he added that she carried him for the sake of his dad, because his wife was infertile. Instead of getting angry, the man laughed and said that his captive was very funny. Saying that he grew bored with him very quickly, the Duke shot him straight in the forehead. He said that in his next life he would come up with a more interesting insult. So now Felix thought that his interlocutor was never shy about getting his hands dirty. He knew that was why Killian was here, dressed in a gentleman's suit. The guy thought about the fact that the Duke began to look somehow softer and tried to understand what had happened. The man quietly asked him to find out if there was any courtesan named Rowena Filoni. He explained that 8 years ago, she surfaced briefly, but could still be doing the same thing. Felix asked if that was the name of his favorite, and then asked why he needed a courtesan with that name. The Duke said that he needed information, so if he did his job well, he would receive 3 times more money than he currently held in his hands. In the evening, the man went to his chambers, hoping to find his favorite there. Unfortunately for him, the room was too quiet, so he realized that she was not there. Killian wondered if she had gone to bed in a completely different room. Walking further down the hallway, he found her sleeping in her bed in her room. Sitting down next to him, he thought that she had gone to bed again, and yet he had talked about her going to bed in his bed. Having touched her, the man clung to her face, enjoying the aroma emanating from her. In the dream, the girl turned away from him because she felt tension on his part. As he was getting ready to leave the room, he thought that they probably needed to sleep peacefully for one night. But suddenly, he heard her request that he not leave. In her sleep, the girl cried and asked her parents not to leave her completely alone in this world. Wiping away her tears, the Duke calmly told her that everything would be fine because he was there. He looked at her anxiously, realizing that he knew practically nothing about her. Killian confidently stated that he would do everything to ensure that she never cried again. A few days later, her uncle was riding on hay lying in a wagon, whose driver offered to give him a ride. The man snored calmly, holding in his teeth a small piece of grass that he found along the way. Stopping near a beautiful estate, the coachman asked with interest if he was sure that he needed to come here. As Jeremy climbed down from the wagon, he thanked him for his help, and thought that he had finally reached the house where the bastard Duke was holding his dear niece. Inside the mansion, he was met by Xenoc asking the guest whether he was Mr. Roderick Defens. To his affirmative answer, the man introduced himself and said that he was the Duke's secretary. Roderick said that his diligence runs ahead of him because he is only an average writer and he already knows his name. The man noticed that the guest arrived in a carriage, although they had sent a carriage for him, to which the author replied that he simply did not really like to ride in expensive carriages because they were a little cramped. Having shown him to the room, Xenoc said that he could discuss the details with Miss Filone and the contract was concluded for 6 months, but could be extended if necessary. He added that the time free from classes is exclusively his, so he is free to spend it as he pleases, but he must remember that everything that happens in this house should remain only in him. Tiredly falling on the bed, Roderick declared that he only had one life, so he was not going to risk it by spreading gossip. Zenock said that he was glad that they understood each other, and then added that he thought that hiring such an outstanding person would be very difficult, and then thanked the writer for agreeing to this job. The guest told him that he was also just a man, so he wanted to earn more money. He asked when he could meet Miss Philia, to which the Duke's secretary corrected him, saying that her name was Miss Filoni. Zenock announced that his bath is ready, so he should spend a little time on his appearance, and then he will take him to Miss Filoni. The writer was very pleased with such hospitality on the part of the Duke, and at this time, Zenock began to leave the room. After leaving the guest's room, the Duke's secretary thought that Roderick de Fonce was a rare piece of trash, because he had always seen right through such money-hungry bastards, so he decided to inform his lordship that there was nothing to worry about. A few hours later, he brought the writer to meet the mother of his new student. The girl said that it was an honor for her to see him live, because she really loved his books. Roderick said that he was also very glad to meet her, because he heard that she was an avid reader of his works. While they were talking about which books were her favorites, Zenock decided that the conversation would drag on. He said that he needed to go on business, so he would leave them alone. Rowena watched closely as the Duke's secretary left the room. Only after a few minutes did they jump up to greet each other normally. They had not seen each other for several years, so her uncle's first question was whether she was the Duke's favorite. He said that on the way to the capital, he heard a huge number of rumors, and then asked what happened to her during this time. The girl cried and told Jeremy about what had happened to her, including how she became the Duke's favorite after her friend's betrayal. She also told how he abandoned her on the island and then brought her back after the birth of Damien. The uncle said wearily that he was surprised that she now had a child, but said that he was going to teach him everything he knew. He added that he couldn't even imagine how she went through all this at her age, and it broke his heart. Rowena explained that her son would not be happy in this house, so she would need help, to which the uncle said that since the Duke was not some ordinary aristocrat, it would not be easy. But then he remembered that she had mentioned the island on which he left it, a resort somewhere in the south. After thinking a little, he assumed that he would still find a way to save his niece. A few days later, the Duke asked her how she liked the new tutor, because Zenock thought that the man was a little eccentric. The girl replied that the teacher had a couple of quirks, but he was wonderful, so she and her son liked him too. The man asked her what she was doing that day, to which she replied that she went to the salon with Countess Selina, who asked her for help in organizing a charity event at the end of the year. Even as a favorite, Rowena regularly received invitations from aristocrats, but this was only to promote these events or ingratiate herself with the Duke, so asking for help in organizing something so important was new to her, but it was direct proof that the favorite's social status in high society had risen to duchess. While tying his tie, the girl said that she was impressed by the banquet, so she would be busy preparing for some time. She talked about writing invitations and hiring musicians and a chef. He moved as close to her as possible so that she could feel his breath on her skin again. The Duke asked her what else his favorite needed to do for the evening. Biting her neck, he repeated that he asked her a completely logical question that she could not answer. Pushing him away from her, she told him that she had to figure out the arrangement of vases and how to arrange the waiters. Taking a deep breath, the man said that it looked like she was trying very hard, and the butlers praised her. He said that she could be trusted with the keys to the wine cellar, which meant that he trusted her with all the affairs of the estate. She dreamed about this 5 years ago, but now she understood that it was all an imitation, and therefore she said that she was not ready yet because she had a lot to learn. When she asked if he understood her, Killian suggested that she was playing with him. He added that he agrees to play along with her as long as everything goes on as usual, because he doesn't care what's going on in her head, because even if she secretly hates him and wants to kill him, he doesn't care at all. Rowena was embarrassed and asked him not to say such things, but she just needed time to think. She understood that he knew perfectly well that he had treated her cruelly that time, so it was clear to him that she did not love him, no matter how many times she said the opposite, but she could not understand whether he really thought that they could start all over again. Pressing close to him, the girl anxiously said that she had one request for him. Just recently, her uncle revealed that she has a way to run away with her son. Jeremy said he would do anything to get her and Damien out of this trap, so he told her to ask the Duke to take her to that island on a certain date. Therefore now, clinging to Killian, she asked him to take her to that very island next summer. Rowena remembered that this was the same island where he had once left her and married another woman. Every day the young master was surrounded by his nannies and a new teacher. Sitting on the windowsill, he read something from a piece of paper until the maid disturbed him. Melissa asked what the little gentleman was doing so interesting. The boy said that he was reading Mr. Defonce's book. In response to her remark that it was more like a manuscript, Demian said, because it had not yet been published, but the main character had the same name as him. The maid asked in surprise what was written in this book, since he was so keen. Rowena's son said that the main character, Demian, lived happily with his mother, even though they had little money. But one day an evil dragon arrived and mercilessly took his mother with him. Then the brave boy decided to gather friends to save her, and went to the good sorcerer for advice. His story was interrupted by Roderick, who suddenly approached and said that he was interested in what they were chatting about. He stated that he had not yet submitted this manuscript to a publisher, so it was not for everyone. Damien quickly walked towards his uncle, glad that he had finally come to him. Turning to the maid, the writer demanded to return the manuscript, and then asked why she had come, to which the girl replied that she simply wanted to visit the young master. The man looked at her coldly and asked if the maid's name was Melissa. To her affirmative answer, he reminded her that she was Miss Rowena's servant, so he asked if she was allowed to just wander around the mansion when she was not working. The girl, in a trembling voice, asked to excuse her, to which he said that next time she should be more careful, and now she was free. The boy wondered why his teacher treated the maid this way, because she was very good, to which his uncle replied that he did not have a very good feeling. He added that he asked the boy to call him uncle when there were no strangers around. Demian stated that he was an uncle